Hello, this week I'm going to be using these other items that came from my first order with Anyscale Models and some lollipop sticks I've been saving for a long while. Now, first of all, I found myself a piece of scrap board. It's got lots of grooves in it because I've been using it to cut on, I think. And I've basically traced out a few bases just to get an idea of how big I wanted it, and I kind of figured most of my squads are 8 men, but the most I'm ever likely to go to is probably 10. So I think I'm going to build it to accommodate 10 men, even though it is a gun placement. And what I'm thinking is I'm going to use the lollipop sticks along the front and down the sides, and then build that up to the top of that, sloping downwards with sculpt mould. So with that in mind, I've been busy sawing my lollipop sticks into small little sections. Now I haven't been exact about these, so there will be some that will stand slightly prouder than others, and I kind of figured that that'd add to the look. And then I've also cut some slightly some slightly longer ones that I'm going to use to hold a net over the top of it. But I kind of would like to make that removable, so that's something I've got to think about on the hop. And then I've also split some of the lollipop sticks so they've got a flat base, because I want to use those to go across the tops to help support the net. I haven't got anything exact in mind, but as you can see, I've got a bit of a picture of what I want to build. My first goal is to start sticking these down. Now I thought, just as a quick fix, I'm going to use some super glue, because they are going to be held in place anyway with the sculpt mould. But I need something that's going to grab it, and by using the quick bond spray, I can speed that bit up. So that's what I'm going to be doing now. Right, so I've stuck the first few down just to show you what I'm aiming to do. As you can see, they are a bit uneven, which is how I wanted it. And what I've done, with a thought for it being a liftable top, is I've just glued two of these together, two of the taller pieces, and I'm going to have them stood there like that on the end, but not glued down. And what I'll do, when I need to hold it in place to build it, I'll put a little bit of blue tack on the bottom of it just to press it into place when I'm fixing the top on. And then what I'm hoping to do, if I have it like that on all four sides, I'll be able to lift it off and put it back down into it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to carry on sticking these down. So what I've done is I've turned the corner now, and I've left a gap for these two to just stand in there that will form part of the roof. Right, so I've put all of those in place, and as you can see, I've put a little bit of blue tack down where the tall posts are going to be, and the tallest of the two I'm going to put at the front. I'll just press them down into it. It's only just to hold them temporarily in place. Like that. And then I've glued some slightly smaller ones, again into twos, and these will be at the back, press them down into their blue tack. Alright, so what I want to do now is glue that onto there, onto that one. I think what I'll do is I'm going to cut it down into size first, just to make it a bit easier. Get the saw. And that'll go on there. So put some super glue on the top. That's that in place. And what I want to do now is I want a piece to glue on top of that one and then glue down to these two here. It doesn't matter that there's a slight gap, I can fill that. And I also want to glue that end to make it all part of one thing. So first of all, again, do my measurement. Right, and now I can saw that one. Just check that for size again. Yeah, perfect. Right, so I'm going to put a blob of glue on the end, so it butts up to that one. Some glue on the top of that one, and some glue on these two. Right, now I need to do the other piece. I wonder if there's enough left on this one. Yes, there is. Actually, I think I'm going to do something a bit different. I'll cut these and then I'll bring you back and explain what I'm doing. Alright, yeah, so what I've done, I realised I'd made a bit of a mistake because I put this second piece on and I decided to run it to there, to the first post, because it'll make it a stronger structure if I can have one going across the back as well. So what I had to do, where I'd put this one right to the end, I've just sawn through it and cut that out. So I can now come across like that with it. And that'll just make this lifting off part just that little bit stronger. So I'm going to glue that in place first. So what I want to do is I want to put a little blob of glue on that bit and that bit, and then on the top of the post. Right. And now that that's in place, I'll give that a quick quick spray. That's the basic part of it built now. Right, so this is my Mod Podge brown. Getting towards the bottom of it actually, so I might have to mix up some more of that. But what I'm going to do is I'm not going to paint the tops, obviously, because I want that to be the lighter colour on the inside of the tree logs that they've used. So I'm just going to be painting it on the outside. I mean, obviously I'll be weathering these and adding to them, so I don't need to worry about this being just a block colour. Good thing about it is, I don't know whether you can see it really, but it has picked out the actual wire brushing that I've done on them. You can start to see the bark texture now a bit more. Looks a bit like a fort at the minute, but obviously once I've got the sculpt mould on, it'll. I mean, what I'm trying to make it look like, really. Obviously, I can't sink down into the battle table, but it's to give the illusion that this is dug down into the ground. So, although these are standing proud, they're not. It's not that proud. It's that this is lower. That's the impression you try and give. But obviously you can't actually physically do it. And I'll do the same to the top as well, if I've got enough left. I'll leave that to dry. Right, I'll leave that to dry and I'll start to mix up some sculpt mould once it's dry, and then I'll bring you back when I'm putting that on. Right, I thought I'd bring you back quickly. It's still not dry, but just as I was setting it to dry, I suddenly came up with the idea of extending it further to the back. Now, the idea of that was, I thought when I'm building up the sculpt mould, I want to be able to gradually slope it down to nothing. So I still needed something there to prop it against. And then the other thing was, so as to allow enough room for possibly 10 men or a gun in the front, and wanting to use my ammo dump, I thought I could put the ammo dump at the back under the net and the other box on that side. So that way, when the net fits over it, all of it's under cover. And what I've done is I've joined it all together, and that's actually given it even more stability. And as I say, it's still got the net to go over it. But by doing that, I just feel it's a stronger structure, and it actually puts everything under wraps in it. and it gives me something to build the sculpt mould against. Right, so I'm ready to apply the sculpt mould again now. So I'm just going to mix a little bit up. I don't want to do too much at once because it soon goes off. And what I've done here is I've made a couple of blank pieces out of the offcuts, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to use them instead of the actual main frame, so I can hold that in place and put the sculpt mould up to it, and same on the other side. And then the two at the front that come out, I've put two little dummy ones of them in as well, so I can then pull them out and there'll be a hole ready for this to slot into. Again, just go for the consistency of cottage cheese. Might put a little bit more in. It doesn't hurt if you get it a little bit too wet, it's just it'll take longer to dry. But obviously this is what you're really aiming for, this kind of, because this, once you've pushed it into place, that'll dry quite quickly. Right, I can start putting this in place now. So I just want it to slope up towards the top part of the wooden logs. You can like maneuver it a bit and shape it for a little while, you know, until it really gets hard. But I just want to build this up along the front. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take that right round the outside and then I'll bring you back. Right, I've put all the sculpt mould in place. And I've gone right round with a small lip at the back. And then once it had started drying a little bit, I just wet my finger and smooth that out. It doesn't have to be perfect because I'm going to put PVA on the top of this eventually when it is dry, and put a grip finish on it. And I've moved these in and out a few times just to make sure that I don't dry them in place, which would be a little bit awkward. So it's just a matter of waiting for that to dry now. It's already starting to go, so it shouldn't take long. But I'll bring you back when we're ready for the next stage. Right, now that that's had time to dry, what I'm going to do is lift out the holding pieces. Take your time taking them out. What I'm going to do now, I'll take that back out and I'm going to paint this again with the Mod Podge brown to seal it all in and to just give it a little bit of extra stability. And then when it's dry, we can start to put some soil and things on it. Right. What I've done now is I've given this another coat and then let it dry. And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to add some different grits and scatters onto it to make it look more natural. So I've got myself a little mixing dish. And what I'm going to take, this one's from Geek Gaming, and it's rough pasture, and I'm just going to put a generous amount of that in. And then this one, again, Geek Gaming, it's a sawdust scatter, and it's earth. So I'm going to put some of that in. And then this is one of his base ready ones called Scrublands, because I want it to look like it's unearthed soil and stones. So I'm going to put some of that in. Not some of the heavier grit, but some of the lighter pieces. Should be enough there. That's what that's looking like now. Right. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to use some of the fast drying basing glue, because it's got a lot tackier finish to it. And I'm going to give this a coat, and then I'll tip that on it. So I'll just brush the glue on, and then I'll bring you back. Right, I'll give that a coat of the glue. And now I'm going to put the scatter mix on it. Right, I've given that a good coat now all the way around, so I'm going to leave that to dry. And then what I've done, I tipped all the excess off back into the dish, but this time added some more of the soil, the earth mix, because on the inside I want to lay it on that as well, but I'm not going to do that until I've put the little pieces of scenery inside, my other parts from Anyscale Models. What I have done in between time is I've undercoated these. So while I'm waiting for that to dry, I'm going to start painting these up next. So when I've painted them, and this has had time to dry, I can bring you back and we'll put that in place, and then we can add the final grounding. Right, this is now dried, as you can see. What I have done is, just to give this side bit a little bit more firmness, I've cut a little piece of hardboard out and stuck that against that edge, just to give it a bit more stability. So what I'm going to do now is I've painted up the little Anyscale pieces that I've got left. I've got this one, which is my ammo stack, and the long box as well. Now I did paint up this other little stack with the oil drums, but I'm thinking it might look a bit too busy, so I might save that for another little scatter train thing. So first of all, what I'm going to do is I'm going to glue these in place now. So my super glue. Right, I want this right on the edge towards the back. And then with this one, I'll have it on the other side. Now the next thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to use some of the fast dry basing glue and put a layer of that down around these, and then I'm going to use not the one with any grass in it, I'm just going to use the earth ground scatter for the inside. So I'll just quickly paint that up with glue and scatter it, and then I'll bring you back. Right. So I've added the scatter, as you can see, and now that that's done, the next phase is I've cut a couple of pieces of stretched bandage, which I've teased out, by pulling it gently. And what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be using this. Put that forward. I'm going to be using this as my camo net over the top of this. And obviously it can't go on just like that, so what I'm going to have to do is I'm going to lay this in a little tub, try and get it all down. And then I've got some brown ink, and I'm going to put some of that in there with it to stain it. So I'm going to have to leave it in there for a little while. And then the other thing that I'm going to add to it, just to give it a hint of green, is a little bit of my Crypt Wraith from Army Painter. And what I'm going to do is obviously try and make sure that all of that is coated. You don't want any white showing at all, so you need to squeeze it through and make sure it's soaked right through to it. Because if you have to make any little trims and cuts, you don't want the white to be showing back through. Spread it out a bit more now I've soaked it all. Right, I've let this soak up most of the ink now. It is still wet, but that's all the better, because it'll help me to hang it better as well. The only thing here is it is a very messy process because you're going to get ink on your hands, so you want to be ready to clean yourself off while you're doing it. I suppose you could wear some gloves that would make it a little bit better, although it's harder to feel the net then. And then what I've also done is put a little bit of the fast drying scenic tacky glue on the top. Squeeze a bit out. That's better. Just overlap that slightly. Make sure there's a little bit hanging down at the back. Right, that's it in place. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to obviously give that plenty of time to dry now, but we're not finished with it there, because I'm going to find some kind of scatter to put on that, and then we'll give it a quick mist with some PVA and stick that on to give it like the leafy effect that Camo Net has. But obviously we've got to allow it time now to thoroughly dry out. Right, I've let it dry a little bit. It's not completely dry, and I've dabbed a little bit more glue on it, and I've found the very thing that I'm going to use. It's from Green Stuff World, and it's called Natural Leaf Litter. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just scatter a tiny bit of this. Some of it will stick and some of it won't, and that's fine. Don't want to put too much on though, because it'll look overkill. I'll just turn that to its side a bit. And a little bit on that side. And what I'll do is I will let that dry now, and then I'll shake off any of the excess, and if there's any bits that I don't like that are a little bit too busy, I can just gently brush them off. Right, we'll leave that to dry, and then I'll bring you back. Right, it's almost completely dry now. And that's the... have a look from underneath it as well. So that's the Camo Net, and it's actually, you know, it's gone quite stiff, even though I've not put a lot of glue in it. Certainly firm enough to keep holding it and things anyway. And then obviously that's now dry. And then obviously what you do is drop that in place. the view from the back. I will include a few photos so you can see it in a bit more detail, because I know the camera lights are not very good here, but what I might do before I bring it back is I've got some little bits of clump foliage like this. I'm not going to do a lot, I'll just do a little bit, perhaps do a bit on the front here at the sides. So I've got that one. I don't know whether I've got a green, but I don't know whether that'd be, yeah, it's way too bright. Straight away, it's just too lively, so that one won't be going on. So I think it's likely to be just a little bit of this one. Right, and that's it. I've added in just a few bits, nothing much, and I've kept it quite a dull colour, and then I've also put a little bit more scatter in and on it to tone it down even more, because I just want it to be like loose veg that's grown back since they actually built the bunker, but nothing major. And then the only other thing that I have done is I've given it a light grey brushing on some of the logs, and again on this as well. Some of it looks a bit light at the minute, but it'll tone back down, that will. And that's it. So that's made use of my original lollipop stack, and also used the last of my Anyscale model pieces from my first order. Right, I'll just take you over to some photographs. So this is the completed project. The logs look a bit white, so I'll probably give them a soft tone wash. But yeah, it's come together pretty well. I mean, obviously you could take a bit more time if you were making one, and think about how you want to lay it out a bit more. But it's been an enjoyable project. There's always that temptation to carry on going too far. Hope you've enjoyed it anyway. If you have, please consider giving me a thumbs up or subscribing so you know when my next video drops. Okay, that's it for this week. Bye.